So, let's do a short final review or final um, of Villagers, and I've played it several times. I was always able to beat the Countess. I played the Countess now in normal mode, so maybe I should try hard mode, which gives her more starting coins, which would still not have defeated me. I probably made some mistake in between. I forgot some of the stuff to do, especially like build after build phase and event phase, and you have probably also seen in my or in the short playthrough that I made some mistakes, probably, but in the end it still was okay. So which is one of the maybe disadvantages or bad things about villagers, that there is quite some stuff to remember. So there is a lot of upkeep, or well, not a lot of, but there's some upkeep to keep track of, especially with the counter stack. Or the countess, because you have to always, because she just builds randomly. So for example, I forgot once to score her the brewer, which was one mistake I did, which can be retconned if you see it quick enough. It can be retconned quite easily. Just give her the points. So that's something which is a little bit of counterintuitive. So you always have to check everything through with everything you build. So that's a little bit of an issue. So that's one thing here, is the this upkeep cost that you need to do. So that's one thing. I had a little, which is something you have to struggle with. You also always have to keep track of how many builds you have, how many food you have, which this is really nice. So they tell you in the rule book that you always have to put drafts and buildings on here first, so that you can keep track of how many cards did I draft already. Which is also something you have to keep track of. So that's one thing that's of an issue or of a disadvantage here. The other thing is, and you can already see this, let's put this a little bit up here so they can see it better. The game needs a lot of table space. Which on a solitaire, this is probably not a real problem, because you have enough space to do it. But you also have to do whole countess, and I do it in this way because it's easier to just quickly go through everything to see if for scoring and for. But I still forget to get to the brewer, so this takes a lot of table space, which for a tableau builder isn't that of an issue, because there's other tableau builders which also takes a lot of table space, not quite as much. So for example, Imperial Settlers also takes some table space, which is another tableau engine builder, which is something similar to this. So that's that. So that's one thing. That's if you don't have a big enough table, it gets quickly out of hand with that. So that's basically, well, the last negative things I have to say here. With that I have to get the box here. So that's basically the base game, and the bad thing is about you can mostly only play the base game. I've got the Kickstarter version, which comes with the expansion in it, which gives you more cards. So you get the developments, you get the scoundrel cards, you get saints, profiteers cards. The problem with these is, and it says so in the rulebook already, you shouldn't play with those. Because they change the balance of the game too much. I didn't dare to try it, so maybe it works. But I don't know if it makes the game easier or harder. If it makes it harder, it might be okay to include them. But I think it will make it easier to beat the countess. That's also why you have to remove the special cards first, because I had to wait a long time for me to get the Seeker. And for example, some special cards just gives, like the Monk, you can just have a Seeker, and I already have Jeweler maybe already in the first market phase, which would be way too ridiculous to have it in the first market phase already. Or at least have the Spelunker in the first market phase, which is 10 points. So yeah, that's a little bit disappointment that you can't use the expansions in the solitaire games. If you plan this to also play with other players, then the expansion is fine and it's really cool. So especially with the Kickstarter edition, where you get this nice wooden thing, and that's to say about the components. It's really nice components, especially. I don't think this is also Kickstarter exclusive. These tiles here, the dividers here, which are cardboard and really sturdy, and I managed to put everything into the box, even sleeve. So many people say that it's not possible to put everything in sleeve cards. It is. I don't remember. I think it's 80 micron or 100 micron card thickness of the sleeves. I think it's 80 micron. And it fits. What you have to do is to put, and I don't know if you can see it, you have to put the wooden tokens in the side here, and then it works that you can fit everything. It's a really tight fit, so it just fits in there, but it fits everything, which is okay. Again, then with the box in here, and then you have the thing here, which is also something you can already see here, because in the lid there is this thing where it sits on top so that you can see the lower lane. It's a little bit of an issue while putting this in, maybe, yeah. So that's a little bit the issue with the rulebook, but I mean, it's rulebook, so who cares? So other than that, on the component wise, it's really nice. Of course, if you get the wooden coin upgrade, it's even nicer, because they're really, you have something in hand, which is really great. So that's that. So the components I've spoken, cardstock is really good. So that's that. Let's get back to setup time. Setup time is okay. It doesn't take too long. It takes maybe 5 minutes-ish to set up everything. Teardown is a little bit longer because you have to get all the, you have to separate everything again, especially the starter cards, like the start rotor cards. You have to get out of the things again. So that's a little bit of the. Other than that, I think the setup time is really okay. It's like 5 minutes, and then you're set up and can play, even if multiplayer. And the cool thing is that the multiplayer and the solitaire takes the same amount of time to set up. So yes, you have the summer deck, but it's just shuffling, and that's it. Mechanics-wise, it's quite interesting. So it's a card draft. There's multiple ways you can do a card draft. So what's here is you have the ability to draft for the countess. So this gives a little bit of more strategic things here. So you can, and you already have seen this during my playthrough, is that depending on what you give her early on, you can steer a bit how she scores. So for example, like with the agent, or here with the wood carver, if I just don't give cards that have certain symbols on them, I can control the points, the extra points that she gets. And the silver coins is mostly where game-winning strategies come to point. So it's basically in the last few turns you should check that you have enough stuff with your silver things, because that's basically your victory conditions. Is that, and if you can already control what she gets in silver symbols, I mean the least amount of symbols you can give her, she can score very little. So there's a bit of luck also involved, because because at the end of the event phase you give her another card at random from the reserve, which has the problem. For example, I had the problem that she got the wine trader, and because it's already 14 points, that's 28 points in total that she gets throughout the game if she gets it in the first market, before the first market phase. So that's where you can't control, which is where this whole thing is a little bit iffy. As said, this is very similar to Imperial Settlers, because in Imperial Settlers you also have a drafting phase, and there it's a little bit different. So you can't control what you get. You take one, then the one is taken at random, and then there's the second one you can take from the rest you have. So that's more random. So here you have a bit more control, but sometimes it screws you over, because from the reserve you can get screwed over, for example, with wine traders or with jewelers, or with the other one, the fromager, which gives 15 coins, which is really devastating if she gets it in the first, because then she gets a lot of points on. But I mean, the Ormuller was 18 points for me, so that's already more than a wine trader gives. Unfortunately, this just only gives it once. So you can argue, if I get these 18 points, I could give her 15 points also in the drafting phase. So there's probably a winning strategy, and I think if you play it enough times, you probably can see a strategy where you can always win. So you always give her something like Grapers or Grazier, because it's inherently it doesn't give her coins. You just have to, if you give her symbols, then it's probably best to give her just one set of symbols. For example, here I just gave her a lot of food symbols, because that only locks her out of one of the solitary game or point givers. Like if I give her the Freemason, it doesn't hurt me that much, because she only gets a small amount of things of points, instead of if she would get one with food, then of course it's devastating. What's really interesting is the addition of the summer and the winter deck, which is the event decks, which is quite nice to include, because this still there is probably some sort of ideal way to draft, and even in the start phase there is probably an ideal way to draft from the first road to control this everything. So I think I always did something like Harvest the Thatcher to give her, because it's so little points to give her. Of course, it's 2 symbols to give her, which may be bad with Freemason and the Food Trader card. So so the event decks change a lot how the game is played. What I feel is a little bit unfortunate is that um, you have a very big summer deck, but normally it takes you 2 turns to get to the first market phase where it changes to the winter deck. And so there's enough variety in the summer deck because there's so many cards. And even if you always get 3, you still have a lot of cards over that are not played. So the diversity of events you get in the summer is higher as you get in the winter deck. So the winter deck is just 4 cards left. And if I've gotten like a 3 events with 3 events each, then I would have gone through the whole winter deck. So that's a little bit of yes, it's interesting the things you get, the diversity of the events. Every event is different, which is nice. But the summer deck is just too big, or the winter deck is too small. So I would have liked if there would be more winter, because you're spending more rounds or more turns in winter than you are in summer. And the summer deck normally has easier events than the winter deck. Because in the winter deck there is the arson and the rats card, which is really devastating because it gives you 1 less action, either in drafting or in building, but you can pay the bank 3 gold. And even with paying me 3 gold, I won. But it would have been probably more devastating if I couldn't have used all my build actions. So that's a little bit the issue. But it's quite nice. So you have to plan a bit better what you're doing. But also sometimes it just doesn't matter what is out there. Because you can just play, or if you just play normally, you just play automatically around it. It's a nice touch to have some pressure. But I think even without it, it would be still challenging to make sure that she doesn't, because yeah, I think the only time, well, there's I think 2 events here that really bother me. Well, 3 events maybe. So the one was the arson. I had to pay the bank 3 gold. So, and I have to pay 6 gold ones or 4 gold ones for the blacksmith and 6 gold ones for the hand. So that's in total somewhere around 13 gold I had to pay to give her. So that's 26 points difference, because it's 13 gold that's missing from me and 13 gold she gets. But other than that, all the events were, I could really well play around them or just did plain nothing. And one I had to Chester. I think that would have been bad if I would have to. But well, I got a glass blower in the last turn, so I could have removed that, but because it's two things, his impulse, it's 2 points already, so I'd rather not, or 3 points in that case. So yeah, but other than that, the game is nice. I think there isn't that much of replayability, although, because, well, there's some sort, but I think after some turns you have seen it, there is always more or less the same decisions you take when giving cards to the countess. There is some luck involved, especially. So yeah, so it's nice. Yeah, it's a quick game. Also, it took me a little bit longer for taping, etc. But other than that, it takes what it takes to do. As said, I think the probably biggest issue is table space. Other than that, it's quite a nice little game, so you can take it out, play it once or twice, and then pack it back away, which is really great because it doesn't take you that much time to set up or tear down. So it's quite nice filler game, but it's I have the feeling that it's missing something more. So you have more replayability because you always play with the same set of cards. You can't change. Yeah, maybe you can change maybe the scrape her out for something else. But so there's a little bit the set. So maybe there will be more expansions in the future, which also enables more replayability for the single player game. But at that, it's okay. But I think in the end, similar strategies will always win against the countess, which is probably what makes or breaks this game.